Today, we're diving into the world of ultra-rare wheat pennies that could be sitting in your change jar or tucked away in an old drawer, and believe me, some of these tiny copper coins are worth a fortune. We're talking values that can climb into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in some cases, beyond what most people could ever imagine. If you've ever wondered whether that old penny in your collection might actually be your ticket to a small fortune, this is the video you don't want to miss. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's explore the stories, the mysteries, and the shocking values behind some of the rarest wheat pennies in history. And before we jump in, make sure to subscribe to Worth Coin so you never miss another chance to discover coins that could change your life. Now, let's dive straight into our first incredible discovery, the 1946 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, this coin might look like just another old penny you'd find rattling around in a coffee can or tucked inside a drawer, but don't be fooled. This coin has a story, and the potential value behind certain varieties will absolutely leave you shocked. The 1946 wheat penny was struck shortly after World War II, a time when America was booming with change, and even its coins carry that history. Made mostly of copper, with just a touch of zinc and tin, it represents an era when the nation had shifted away from the steel sense of 1943. Millions were minted that year in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, so you might think they're common and in circulated, worn condition, like the one we're looking at right now in fine grade. Most of these pennies might only fetch a small premium, maybe $1 or $2 to the casual collector. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Some of these 1946 wheat pennies hide secrets, rare mint errors, striking oddities, and high-grade survivors that collectors fight tooth and nail to own. Imagine pulling one from a roll and discovering that instead of being struck on the usual copper planchet, your 1946 cent was accidentally struck on a leftover steel planchet from 1943. Only a tiny handful of these are known, and the last time one surfaced, it sold for over $450,000 at auction. Think about that for a moment. A single penny, just an inch across, suddenly worth nearly $500,000. That's the kind of jaw-dropping value that keeps collectors searching. Now, let's talk about condition. Your average worn 1946 penny, the kind you see in fine or very fine grade, might not break the bank, but once you move into uncirculated examples, with their sharp details and original mint luster, prices rise quickly. A bright red gem, graded Ms. 67 by a top grading company, has commanded over $10,000 at auction. And the higher you climb in grade, the more breathtaking those values become. Imagine someone finding what looks like a simple penny in a jar, only to realize under magnification it gleams with fiery red brilliance, and touched for decades. Suddenly, that 1 cent could pay for a new car, or more. The design itself is part of the charm. The front shows Abraham Lincoln's portrait, simple and familiar, while the back displays the iconic wheat stalks, a design that collectors never tire of. But within that design, errors hide double dies where the letters appear ghostly and doubled, off-center strikes that show the portrait pushed to one side, or even clipped planchets where part of the coin is missing. Any of these unusual features can send the price soaring into the thousands. And with the 1946 error, hunters know there are plenty of surprises still out there. So, how can you identify a potentially valuable 1946 wheat penny? Start by checking for mint marks, a small d for Denver, or an S for San Francisco. Then examine the coin closely under good light. Look at the date and lettering for doubling. Check the edges for clips, and feel the weight. If your 1946 penny is magnetic, you could be holding one of those legendary steel planchet errors. That's when it's time to stop, take a deep breath, and consider getting it professionally graded, because you could be sitting on a six-figure fortune. Next up, let's travel back even further in time, to a coin that carries with it the heart of the Great Depression era, the 1935 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, this coin in extra fine condition might seem modest, but the truth is, it has a legacy that reaches far beyond its simple copper shine. Picture America in 1935. Jobs were scarce, people were saving every last cent, and yet millions of these pennies were being struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. They were part of daily life, exchanged for a loaf of bread or a morning newspaper. And here we are, nearly 90 years later, and the very same coins that once quietly passed through the hands of everyday Americans are now making headlines in the world of collectors. Now, let's start with the basics. A normal 1935 wheat penny in circulated grades is usually worth maybe 25 cents to a few dollars, depending on the wear. Even in extra fine condition, like the one we're looking at here, collectors might pay a few bucks for a nice example. But what if your coin isn't just another 1935? What if yours is one of the rare varieties or error strikes that have turned ordinary-looking pennies into breathtaking treasures? One of the most famous is the 1935 double die reverse. Imagine flipping your penny over and seeing the words 1 cent or United States of America doubled, clear as day, like a shadow behind the letters. That little doubling error transforms a penny-worth pocket change into a piece collectors will pay thousands for. In higher mint-state grades, this double die has sold for over $15,000 at auction. Not bad for something that started out as just 1 cent. But that's not the ceiling. The 1935 wheat penny also has rare off-center strikes and die cracks, where the coin was misaligned in the press or the die itself fractured during minting. These are dramatic errors, the kind that make collectors stop and stare. An off-center 1935, with the date still visible, can sell for hundreds, sometimes thousands, depending on how dramatic the error looks. Imagine finding a penny with Lincoln's face sliding off the edge of the coin. What some people might think of as a mistake, collectors see as pure gold. Condition, of course, changes everything. An average circulated 1935 wheat penny might not catch much attention, but once you step into the world of uncirculated examples, the game changes. Coins graded Ms. 67 red have crossed the auction block for more than $20,000. That's right, one coin, untouched for nearly a century, glowing with its original mint color, sold for more than many people's yearly salary. And let's not forget, there are rumors, whispers among collectors of rare pattern strikes and experimental planchets from the mid-1930s, coins that, if confirmed, could fetch six-figure sums or more. Now here's the jaw-dropper. While a typical 1935 penny might be affordable to most collectors, the rarest examples, with the most dramatic errors and the highest condition grades, have been estimated in value at over $200,000. Yes, a coin that people once tossed into their pockets without a thought can now rival the price of a luxury car or even a home. And now, for our third coin in this journey, we arrive at the mysterious 1947D Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, the example we're looking at today shows a dark, almost black shade across its surface, the kind of toning and wear you'd expect from a coin that has seen decades of circulation. But here's the incredible part. What might look like an ordinary, even worn-down penny to most people, could actually be hiding secrets that make it worth an astonishing amount of money. The 1947D was struck at the Denver Mint, with hundreds of millions produced. That means, yes, it's considered common in lower grades. In fine condition, like this coin, most collectors would value it at just a few cents to maybe $1. And yet, hidden among these ordinary-looking coins are varieties and errors so rare and so shocking that collectors have paid jaw-dropping sums for them. One of the most famous stories involves pennies that year struck on leftover steel planchets, just like in 1943. Imagine that a 1947 penny that sticks to a magnet because it was accidentally struck on steel instead of copper. If you ever find one of those, you're not just holding a penny, you're holding a life-changing treasure. At auction, such a coin has been estimated to bring more than $500,000. Yes, over $500,000 for what looks like just another Lincoln cent. That's the kind of discovery collectors dream about. But it doesn't stop there. The 1947D wheat penny is also known for double die varieties. Imagine looking closely at the date, or the lettering on "In God We Trust," and seeing every number or letter doubled, bold, and unmistakable. These doubled dies can transform a $1 coin into a 5-figure showstopper. In gem mint state, some of these varieties have fetched over $30,000, simply because the doubling is so strong and so clear. And then, of course, we have off-center strikes, where Lincoln's portrait drifts dramatically toward the edge of the coin, and die cracks, which look like raised lines running across the surface. Collectors love these unusual mistakes, and depending on severity, values can jump from a few $100s all the way into the thousands. Imagine picking up a handful of old change and seeing one coin that looks just a little off. That oddity might be your ticket to a huge payday. The condition also plays a role. Most 1947D pennies are found in circulated condition like this. 1. Dark and worn, but when preserved in brilliant, uncirculated red, the kind of coin that still looks brand new after more than 75 years, values explode. A 1947D graded Ms. 67 red has sold for over $15,000. And who's to say an even higher grade won't surface in the future? That could easily push the price into the $50,000 range or more. The black shade we see on this particular fine condition coin tells another story, a story of circulation, handling, and the passage of time. While it may not be worth a fortune in this grade, it reminds us that for every dark, ordinary-looking penny out there, a bright, rare, or rare variety may be waiting just around the corner. That's the thrill that keeps collectors searching. Moving forward, let's take a close look at the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin born in the closing months of World War II. When you hold a 1945 penny, you're not just holding copper, you're holding a piece of American history struck in a year when soldiers were returning home. Factories were shifting from war production back to peacetime goods, and the entire nation was stepping into a new era of hope and recovery. The coin itself, in extra fine condition, like the one we see here, shows nice detail on Lincoln's face and the wheat stalks on the reverse. It's not as worn down as the pennies that circulated heavily, but it does show light signs of use. To the untrained eye, it may look like just another old penny worth a few cents. But dig deeper, and the story becomes far more exciting. The 1945 wheat penny was minted in huge numbers across Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Over 1 billion were produced. So yes, in average circulated condition, most examples aren't rare. But hidden among those billions are coins with mistakes, oddities, and high-grade survivors that can turn into jaw-dropping treasures. One of the most incredible possibilities lies in transitional planchet errors. Remember, just 2 years earlier, in 1943, the U.S. Mint produced pennies made of zinc-coated steel to save copper for the war effort. Some leftover steel planchets remained in the mint, and every now and then, one slipped into the presses in later years. Imagine a 1945 penny a year when all cents were supposed to be copper struck on steel instead. That single mistake transforms a 1-cent coin into a 6-figure prize. If you ever find a 1945 penny that sticks to a magnet, you may be holding a coin worth more than $250,000. But that's not all. The 1945 penny is also known for doubled die varieties. These coins show doubled letters in Liberty, or In God We Trust, and the doubling can be dramatic enough to see with the naked eye. While a normal 1945 penny in extra fine condition might fetch only a small premium, one with strong doubling can sell for thousands, even tens of thousands in uncirculated grades. And then there are off-center strikes, die breaks, and clipped planchets. These unusual mint errors add a layer of uniqueness, and collectors love them. A sharply off-center 1945 penny with a visible date can easily sell for several $100s or more. The more dramatic the mistake, the higher the price. Condition, as always, is the key. In extra fine, the coin is attractive and collectible, but when you step into mint state red examples, those bright, untouched coins that still glow with their original copper color, the values soar. A 1945 wheat penny graded Ms. 67 red has sold for over $10,000. And who's to say an even higher grade specimen won't one day break that record? The possibility of a $15,000 or $20,000 Penny is very real. And now, we reach the grand finale of our journey. The 1944 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, the worn condition of this coin makes it look like just another piece of copper, a penny that has passed through countless hands over the last 8 decades. But don't let its simple appearance fool you. The 1944 wheat penny hides one of the most incredible stories in all of U.S. coin collecting, and some examples are worth more than the average American home. In 1944, the U.S. Mint struck billions of pennies, switching back from steel planchets, used in 1943, to the familiar copper alloy. Copper had been in high demand for the war, but with victory on the horizon, the Mint returned to the traditional composition. That means most 1944 pennies are extremely common. The kind you might find in an old jar, worth only a few cents in worn condition like the one we see here. But hidden among these billions of ordinary cents is one of the greatest rarities in American coinage. During the transition from steel back to copper, a tiny handful of steel planchets from 1943 were accidentally fed into the presses. The result? A 1944 penny struck not in copper, but in steel. These are legendary coins. They stick to a magnet, they look pale gray instead of brown or red, and they are among the most famous mint errors ever discovered. One of these 1944 steel cents sold for over $450,000. Yes, nearly $500,000 for a single penny. Others have crossed the auction block for even higher amounts, depending on condition. Imagine pulling one out of an old roll and realizing it could pay for your retirement in an instant. But that's not the only treasure hiding in 1944 pennies. There are also varieties struck on shell casing planchets, recycled metal from World War II ammunition. These coins carry history in their very metal, and while they may look like ordinary copper cents, collectors pay premiums for them, especially in high grades. Then there are double die varieties, where the numbers in the date or the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust show ghostly doubling. These errors can turn an otherwise common coin into a rarity worth thousands of dollars. Even off-center strikes and clipped planchets add drama to the 1944 series. A coin with part of its design missing or shifted dramatically, off-center can sell for hundreds or even thousands, depending on severity. What most people see as a flaw, collectors see as a one-of-a-kind treasure. Condition plays a huge role too. While the worn example in front of us today may only carry sentimental value, a 1944 wheat penny preserved in blazing red, uncirculated condition can command hundreds, even thousands. The record prices for immaculate 1944D and 1944S cents have climbed well over $10,000 each. And when you combine high grade with the rare error, that's when the jaw-dropping, six-figure values emerge. Think about it, billions of these coins were minted, tossed into circulation, spent on groceries, and rattled through change jars. And yet, just a few rare survivors, whether steel planchet errors, dramatic double dies, or high-grade red gems, have gone on to make history as some of the most valuable wheat pennies ever. Moving on, we come to a coin that has a quieter reputation, but for those who know, it can deliver some of the most exciting surprises in all of wheat penny collecting. It's the 1938D Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, in extra fine condition, like the one we're looking at, it might seem modest. The coin has detail, the lettering is sharp, and Lincoln's profile still shows plenty of life, but it's no blazing red gem. Still, the story this coin carries, and the potential it hides, will leave you amazed. The year 1938 was a challenging time in America. The Great Depression was still casting its long shadow, yet change was on the horizon as industries began stirring to life again. In Denver, the Mint struck just over 20 million of these pennies. That may sound like a large number, but compared to other wheat penny issues that reached into the hundreds of millions, it's a surprisingly low mintage. Fewer coins struck means fewer survivors today, and collectors know it right away. That scarcity adds to its value. In worn condition, the 1938D might bring $1 or $2, but in higher grades, it's a completely different story. Extra fine examples like this one already draw attention from collectors who want better than average pieces. But move just one step higher, into brilliant uncirculated red gems, and the prices start climbing into the thousands. A 1938D penny graded Ms. 67 red has sold for over $10,000. That's a staggering leap for a coin that began life as just 1 cent. But what really makes the 1938D unforgettable are its errors and varieties. One of the most famous is the repunched mintmark variety known as RPM. Look closely at the D on the coin, and in some cases, you'll see traces of a second or even third D punched into the die. This tiny doubling on the mint mark transforms an ordinary coin into a highly desirable collectible. Some RPM varieties from 1938D have sold for thousands, especially in mint state. Imagine pulling a coin from a roll and spotting not one, but two overlapping Ds stamped into its surface. That's the kind of find that makes collectors' hearts race. And let's not forget the double die varieties. Though much rarer, they do exist, and when one appears, the value skyrockets. A bold double die 1938D penny in uncirculated condition could easily fetch tens of thousands of dollars at auction. Then there are the classic minting blunders, off-center strikes, die cracks, or even clipped planchets. Each one is unique, and each one can push values higher, sometimes into the high four-figure range or beyond. The worn and circulated examples, like the one we have in extra fine today, remind us that millions of these coins once rattled through pockets, paid for coffee, or bought a loaf of bread. And yet, among those ordinary pennies, the rare survivors, in pristine condition or with dramatic mint errors, can rival the price of luxury jewelry. That contrast is what makes the 1938D so fascinating. Ordinary to most, but extraordinary to the few who know what to look for.